Hello, I'm Paul, anxiety hypnotherapist. I'd like to speak to you today about something that's been going through my mind. Now, very often people experience anxiety or conflict or tension, but once we've experienced those things, those patterns, those emotions for maybe over a year, maybe over 2 years, quite a long period of time, it's really difficult, isn't it? Really difficult to get some understanding of how it is to feel normal, how should we feel, or is there anything really wrong with us, or am I feeling better than I did a month ago, or worse than I did a year ago? It's quite difficult, isn't it, to really calibrate those things. And I'm going to suggest to you that very often people feel much worse than they really think they do. So I don't mean that in a negative way, but I just mean that it's really difficult for people to appreciate how it is to feel balanced, how it is to feel focused, how it is to feel really, really good in themselves when they've experienced natural anxiety at just walking past someone, when they're walking down the street or having to get up to work and do something, and that constant tension, that constant anxiety that they feel just becomes the norm for them. So they really don't see how it is when they've began to make some important changes in their life. So I'm talking about not just people who have a strong anxiety disorder, but I mean just the normal everyday person who may experience some tension, some conflict, some anxiety in their life. Very often, it's really difficult to really see with clarity the difference that happens in someone's life when they really do make that transition. An important example of this is today. Today, I was doing some public speaking training with a friend of mine who wants to cure his phobia of public speaking. We just did a simple exercise. So before I asked him about a presentation he's got to give in a few weeks' time, and he said on a scale of 1 to 10, he was level 8. So on a level 8, in terms of, he was really, really nervous about it, really worried. He felt he was going to panic and his hands were going to shake on the day, and he hasn't done any public speaking really his whole life. So what we did today was we got him to stand in the street and just read a book. So in Norwich, just down the road, we got him to stand there and just read a book in public. And it's quite interesting really, because it's very similar to how he's going to feel when he gives his presentation. But the most important thing really was how different he felt just after doing something as simple as that. Now, before we should have asked him how he felt about speaking to people in public, he'd have been really, really introverted about it. He wouldn't really wanted to do it. He'd felt quite, nervous about the idea of it and the thought of it. And he feels that way generally in his life for most of the time. But just after speaking for 5 minutes, on occasion he spoke for like 30 seconds. We had a break, spoke for 30 seconds, just 5 minutes, just quietly. We did it in 3 different ways. Firstly, we did it by, he just literally spoke away from people where he could see people but they couldn't hear him. Secondly, he spoke where people could hear him. And thirdly, he spoke a little bit louder, so he tried to speak and really pronounce his voice so people could directly hear him. And it's just reading a book about grammar. And just after doing that for 5 minutes, we walked away and asked him, we went through a quick survey of how he felt and the impact it had on his life. And the strangest thing was that how he felt just walking around Norwich was completely different to how he felt before. So before, he didn't notice that he was anxious just walking around looking at people, and he didn't feel confident most of the time. To him, that was the normal way he felt in his life. That was just how the world is. Afterwards, he was looking at people's eyes. He could confidently walk up and speak to people. He felt completely different just after letting go of all that tension and all that anxiety and all that nervousness that had built up. He felt amazingly different. So I want to suggest to you, just imagine if he did that every day. Imagine if every single day for a month he just did that small exercise. And he got to the point where, so before he felt a level 8 when we were about to start, so he had to speak in front of no one at the start, just with people in the distance, and then we gradually got forward. But imagine at the end of the month, he'd probably feel level 2 or level 1. He might not feel any nervousness at all. And just imagine the difference that would make to his life, how much more confident, capable and comfortable he'd feel in every situation where there's people involved. It'd be an amazing difference, wouldn't it? Compared to before, he's heading in a direction where he's feeling more nervous every year of his life. So it really does show that really having the courage, having the focus to really systematically desensitize yourself from any feelings of anxiety or nervousness that you have in your body, is one of the best ways to do it. The only problem is that 99% of people won't do it. Without someone to coach them through it, without someone to hold their hand, without someone to put them there, without someone to help them every single day for that month, most people just simply won't bother. And that's the biggest frustration, isn't it? So, my advice is to go and get a coach, get a best friend, get someone who's going to hold you to account. Plan something out for a month, systematically every day, desensitize yourself for something that's Every single day. Consistency is more important than how well you do it. So consistency is far more important. For an hour, he could have stand there and screamed and done all kinds of silly things in the street. But the most important thing is you do what you're comfortable with, and then you never need to get to that level 8. So at the moment, he said if you're a level 8, if you had to do a presentation today, but doing what he did today, he probably only felt a 4 or 5, or a 6. But then as he does it tomorrow, he feels a 5, and then he can stretch further, and then it only goes to 5 or 6, if that makes sense. And then we do something a little bit more difficult, and he still only feels a 5, and he feels more comfortable there. Then we do something a little bit more difficult, but he still only feels a 5 because he's got more comfortable. And then a little more difficult, and he still only goes to a 5. And then eventually we get to the point where what was a level 8 he even gives in that presentation, he's only going to feel a 3 or a 2 at best. Which is amazing, isn't it? Because he's never had to step out of his comfort zone. He's never had to do something really difficult. He's always just slowly did it, conditioned his nervous system, conditioned himself to feel more comfortable, more relaxed, and got to the point where he can now do that presentation with feeling very calm, very relaxed, very confident, without doing anything that's panicky, anything that's really difficult. So in fact, he's avoided all of the panic and the terror he would have had to experience on that day just by systematically going through a much simple, much more easy process. So that's what I'd like to suggest to you, that any fears, phobias, anxieties that people have, there's ways to methodically break down these patterns so that you never have to do anything difficult. So instead of experiencing massive panic and massive anxiety and massive terror, you can avoid all those moments by conditioning yourself today for the rest of your life. So instead of feeling more nervous, you feel more confident. Instead of feeling more panicky, you just know in yourself that's something you can never ever be worried about again. And I don't know how he's going to feel after 30 days of doing this, but I can imagine it's something he's never ever ever going to have a problem with again in his life. But why stop after 30 days? After 30 days, you've reached a certain point. Let's step it up. Let's move it forward. Let's get it to the point where he's as confident as the top 1% of the population. So he's fearless in anything that he wants to do. Wouldn't that be a better way to live? Wouldn't that be an enjoyable way to really live your life on a day-to-day basis? Without the worrying thoughts about what if this happens, what if that happens, what if I'm here, what if I'm there? It's really terrible, when we all get caught in those patterns, and every person deserves more. So whatever it is that you want to do, make that step today, make the decision today to move forward, to make a decision that carries you in the direction that's really important for you. Because I promise you, ability is not what's limiting you. Motivation, strategy are the two things that limit the most people. Motivation to do what's needed in order to cure the problem. It's the biggest limitation for most people. Take that step, and I promise you it'll be far easier than heading out to that public speaking event without any practice or without desensitizing yourself at all. Okay, thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it's added something to your life that you can really take forward and practice yourself. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.